All right, let's dive into one of those problems that if you've ever touched a database, you've definitely felt. You've got this pile of data, you need to get in there, and you're just staring at your screen thinking, am I really going to write the same insert statement again and again and again? There's just got to be a better way, right? I mean, the obvious way to do it is just to write one insert statement for each row. And yeah, technically that works. But it just feels so clunky, so repetitive. You just know in your gut there has to be a cleaner, more elegant way to do this. And hey, if you've ever had that thought, you are in very, very good company. Get this, there's a single Stack Overflow question asked more than 16 years ago about this exact problem, and it's been viewed 3.7 million times. That is staggering. We're talking millions of developers all looking for the exact same answer. And that question really gets to the core of what we as developers are always after, right? We want efficiency. We want clean code. We just want a smarter way to do our jobs, not just a harder one. Well, the answer, thankfully, is a huge yes. And what's so cool is that the modern standard solution is just surprisingly elegant. It's one of those things where once you see it, you'll wonder how you ever did it the old way. So let's get into it. What is this modern solution? It's something called the table value constructor, or, what most people just call the values constructor. This feature showed up in SQL Server back in 2008, and honestly, it's been a total game changer ever since. And wow, the difference is just night and day. I mean, look at this. On the left, you've got that clunky, repetitive way, 4 separate statements. And on the right, one single clean statement. You just write insert into, name your columns, and then using the values keyword, you just list out your rows, separated by commas. It's so much cleaner. So yeah, the fancy official name for this is a table value constructor. And what that really means is it's a feature that lets you bundle a bunch of rows together inside a single command. In this case, an insert command. You're basically creating a little mini table on the fly, right there in your query, and the database just pulls the data from it. It's the secret sauce that makes this whole thing work. And here's the really great news. This isn't just some weird one-off trick for SQL Server. Nope, this has pretty much become the standard across the board. Whether you're working with MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite, or even the newer versions of Oracle, this syntax is going to work for you. It's a super reliable, portable skill to have in your back pocket. Okay, so this all sounds great. But like with most things in tech, there's a little gotcha you need to be aware of. While this method is awesome, it does have a pretty significant limitation, especially when you're not just inserting 4 rows, but maybe thousands. And that gotcha is the number 1,000. Specifically in SQL Server, the values clause hits a wall. It has a hard limit of 1,000 rows per statement. The moment you try to add row number 1,001, boom, the whole thing fails. So what does that mean? Are we stuck? If you've got, say, 5,000 rows to insert, do you have to go back to the bad old days of looping or writing 5 separate statements? Nope, not at all. There is a really slick workaround for this. Instead of a direct insert values, you switch it up to an insert select. You take that exact same list of values, but you wrap it inside a from clause. By doing that, you're basically telling SQL Server, hey, treat this list of values like it's a real table. And that little trick completely sidesteps the 1,000 row limit. Pretty clever, right? And this little history lesson really shows you what a big deal the values constructor was when it came out. Before 2008, if you wanted to do this, you were stuck with these awful, clunky workarounds using a chain of select and union all statements. It was messy. The values constructor just blew all that away and gave us the clean, simple syntax we take for granted today. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, that's neat. It makes my code look nicer. And it does. But that's not the real reason this matters. The real story here, the most important part, is performance. Of course, someone on Stack Overflow brought up a really good skeptical point. They said, hey, if you batch all these inserts together, the whole thing is atomic. That means if one single row fails, maybe a typo or the wrong data type, the entire batch gets rolled back. It's an all-or-nothing situation, which sounds risky, and that's a fair point. But the very next comment just hits the nail on the head. They say, the main reason is performance, actually. And they are absolutely right. The reason we accept that small risk is for a huge, massive payoff in speed. And the difference isn't small. It can be absolutely dramatic. Think about it this way. Every time you send a query to the database, it's like making a phone call. There's an overhead. Sending 1,000 separate queries is like making 1,000 separate phone calls. But bundling them all into one batch, that's one single phone call. All that time saved on communication overhead is what makes this so incredibly fast. So yeah, the performance boost comes from a few things. You get way fewer network trips. The server only has to parse and compile one query instead of 1,000. And here's a really big one. If you have any triggers on that table, they only fire once for the entire batch, not once for every single row. I mean, that alone can save you an incredible amount of processing time. So really, the big takeaway here is that this is so much more than just a neat syntax trick. It's about a fundamental shift in how you think. It's about moving from row-by-row operations to writing efficient, batch-oriented code. It's about learning how to work with your database engine, not fight against it, to get the absolute best performance you can. It's amazing, right? This one simple change in thinking, from one row at a time to a whole batch at once, can make such a huge difference. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? It leaves us with this final thought. What other obvious or standard things are we doing in our own code that are secretly slowing everything down, just waiting for us to find them?